Welcome back into the Cherry Pinstripes podcast. I am your host, Shelfy, and again, we have more off-season news to discuss. We're double dipping this week here on the pod, and I'm going to get things started today with the good news, Phillies fans. Despite everything that's happening, we did make a move this week. The Phillies signed Jordan Romano to a one-year, $8.5 million deal, and this isn't a move that's going to blow anyone's socks off, but there's a lot to look at here. First and foremost, Jordan Romano is coming off a horrible season where he only pitched 13 and 2/3 innings over 15 appearances, and he finished with an awful WAR that was pushing 7 and a negative WAR. But this is a pitcher who from 2021 to 2023 was a perennial all-star, 184 appearances, 95 saves with a 2.37 ERA, fourth in saves over that time, seventh in ERA. He was also fourth in left on base percentage. This is a guy you could bring into a game early in the eighth inning. He'll give you an extra out or two and then go back out to the ninth. The Phillies have had a lot of experience with pitchers who can only go one, or you can't let them touch the eighth inning, Craig Kimbrell. So it would be nice if Jordan Romano get over the injury issues of last season. If you can get even just 80% of the Jordan Romano that was pitching before the injury, this could be a huge signing for the Phillies. Really, really high ceiling on this one. Not that much of a risk with the way John Middleton's spending money. I don't believe there's any such thing as a bad one-year deal. The only way this is a bad deal for the Phillies is if they're not at least willing to go get more relief pitching later if it doesn't work out. If the hypothetical presents itself where he's not pitching great, maybe the arm's just dead, he's not going to be back to what he was before, be willing to go get another arm later. That's all I ask. There's no real risk here with a really high ceiling. The Phillies bullpen going into the season, right now on paper, you have 4 high leverage guys, 2 righties, 2 lefties, Romano and Kerkering, Alvarado and Strahm. We've talked about Strahm, Kerkering both being on arbitration. You have years of control over those guys. I believe Strahm has at least 2. There might be a third. I think it's 2 though. So you're probably going to see him potentially getting super. I think Matt Strahm might enter the season as like the closer unless Romano looks lights out in spring training. So this is something we're going to be keeping our eyes on all through spring training once pitchers and catchers report is what does that Jordan Romano arm look like going into the season. It could be a game changer at a low AAV. We'll circle back later. Now, before we jump into the Garrett Crochet deal, I'm going to let Chris Rose tell you guys about Blitz Ball Battle 5.
We are back in the warehouse. Blitz Ball Battle 5 presented to you by DraftKings, the second of our 2 semifinal matchups between Forgotten Rotten and defending Blitz Ball champion McFlurry Power. They have dreams of hoisting a second straight Blitz Ball banner, and with a win, they will take down the inaugural Warehouse Cup.
The biggest storyline for me today is Trevor Plouffe. Shelfy has gone well above what he's supposed to do. It's time for Trevor to pick it up a little bit.
This is another good matchup between 2 teams who haven't been as good as they should be. They really haven't hit this entire tournament, but somebody's going to have to score runs to win. Trevor Plouffe is going to have to come through at the plate eventually. I think it's going to happen. For me, I'm going to be taking Forgotten Rotten, guys.
If I pick McFlurry, Rotten's going to win. So I pick McFlurry.
I think Forgotten Rotten will make it to the championship against your team from Lovias. Today is your day, Plouffe. We'll find out who's going to make all the way to the finals. It's Blitz Ball Battle 5, presented to you by DraftKings.
Now, Garrett Crochet. This turned into absolute pandemonium during the winter meetings. The Phillies have been rumored to be wanting Garrett Crochet. They've been in the rumor mill for Garrett Crochet. Going back to the trade deadline last season, the Phillies, there's clear interest there from the Philadelphia Phillies. I think they view him, in my opinion, they view him as someone that they can pair with Andrew Painter long-term. They don't just want to bring him in here. I think Garrett Crochet is a guy that the Phillies are interested in having on this team for a while. So just because he got traded to Boston, if Boston can't get an extension done, I think this is a name the Phillies will revisit later if he stays healthy. But they were in the mix. It's rumored that they offered Aiden Miller and Justin Crawford, which is a very strong offer, might I add. I know it feels like the Phillies are sitting on their hands right now. If they're offering Aiden Miller and Justin Crawford in trades, they're pushing. Like, that's an offer. That is a strong offer. I am totally okay with Andrew Painter being untouchable for players that are on 1 or 2 year rentals. I'm okay with that. I think Aiden Miller, Justin Crawford in a package deal is a nice little offer. definitely could have gotten the job done if there wasn't a better offer on the table, which is what simply happened here. Boston offered a better deal. Kyle Teal, Braden Montgomery, along with 2 other prospects, Teal and Montgomery, both ranked in the top 60. Teal actually ranked above Aiden Miller on the minor league baseball top 100. So a super strong offer from Boston, who has a deep farm system. They didn't get rid of Marcelo. There was rumors that they might get rid of Tristan Casas. He stayed. So I think it's a great deal for Boston. Chicago gets a nice little return. The Phillies just couldn't quite get it done without Andrew Painter. I can live with that. The crosshairs of this, though, the Alec Bohm drama that came along with it. Because there was a whole lot of spew out there that Alec Bohm was looking like a potential centerpiece along with prospects in a deal. Now, Rob Thompson came out in the winter meetings, a little interview on MLB Network with Ruben Amaro Jr., said that the Phillies were not shopping Alec Bohm. And then about 18 hours later, Garrett Crochet got dealt in that deal to Boston. Comes off to me like the Phillies either took themselves out of the race or were told they're not going to be able to match it without Andrew Painter. Decided to start doing some Alec Bohm damage control. Alec Bohm's not actually going anywhere. We got to make sure this guy's mind's right to be on our team in 2025, because the rumors were not just out there. I mean, everyone was covering it. Nightingale dropped that article that the Phillies were at least taking calls on Alec Bohm, interested in Garrett Crochet. And let's be honest, on paper, it all makes sense. It all makes sense. The White Sox are looking for a nice little haul, multiple players, a top prospect. The Phillies can do that. They also could offer up Bohm. White Sox fans, I was talking about this on Twitter. What's the value in Bohm? For a team like Chicago, it would have been, well, we are giving up 2 years of control in Garrett Crochet. We're getting 2 years of control over a young third baseman and prospects. I think that's a solid deal. Boston offered more. It is what it is. Will we circle back on Garrett Crochet in the future? That comes down to whether or not Boston can lock him into a long-term contract. But there is significant interest there. More significant interest for the Phillies, because Garrett Crochet is not the only trade bait that we're seeing in the media with the Philadelphia Phillies. Kyle Tucker's name has been tossed around with the Philadelphia Phillies over the last few days. And you're going to see that, though. A guy of this caliber, there's going to be a ton of teams interested. On paper, it's looking like the Phillies, the Yankees, the Cubs, and I believe there was one other team reported in the mix. Maybe the Giants are a team that makes sense. So those were the 4 teams that are reported to be in on it. You don't know how much of that is smoke and mirrors, who's actually calling, who's getting used as bait to try and increase up. You don't know. But the thing with Kyle Tucker is another situation where the Phillies might, if it costs you Andrew Painter, they might just try and circle back next winter and sign him without giving up assets. It's a 1-year rental situation with Kyle Tucker. Garrett Crochet, you had the 2 years of control. Kyle Tucker, you're getting 1 year. He is absolutely going to the market. Based off the reports I was reading this morning, there hasn't even really been any discussion with an extension for him in terms of a trade and sign. Doesn't seem to be any inkling that that's going to happen. So this is someone that's going to hit the market. What is your top offer for a 1-year rental? I'm not in the camp of all in, personally. I'm seeing that online. Everyone seems to think the window is getting shrinking tight. My mindset, we've talked about this before, Kyle Schwarber and JT Realmuto fall off next year. Nick Castellanos falls off the year after that. Wheeler's still producing, worth every penny. Harper's still producing, worth every penny. You have good relievers on arbitration money. You have a great contract in Christopher Sanchez. Ranger Suarez is still on arbitration. The window's not closing, but they do have to get these retools right. They have to get him right. The Turner contract might not look great down the road, but he's still playing productive, positive WAR baseball at least. They don't have a single person on this roster in terms of position players. Taijuan Walker's the only one that fits the bill. That's like actually anchoring this, like holding this team down. There's no one holding this team down. I don't look at the payroll and go, man, how are they going to work around that? There's not one person. Most of their contracts are good. Got to figure out the Taijuan Walker situation. Maybe we have issues with Trey Turner later. But right now, and I feel like I've beaten this over the head, the Phillies do not have any young arbitration-eligible players producing like all-stars. They got it for 3 months out of Alec Bohm. Maybe he can put it all together next year if he's still here. But that's what they really need. The money that they've spent, they've spent great money. They changed the culture of this team. Guys want to come here now. We're in the mix on trades and free agents every single winter. I think the Phillies have done a great job. They just haven't gotten the job done. Kyle Tucker, just like Garrett Crochet, you might see the Phillies revisit later if they can't get a deal done, but do they get a deal done? If Aiden Miller and Justin Crawford are available for Garrett Crochet, I would assume that one of them would be available in a Kyle Tucker trade. if that were to happen. The other name I seen floating around on Twitter over the week was Seiya Suzuki. That one I'm not so sure about. The Cubs GM did come out and say they expected him to be on the team. They seem to like Seiya Suzuki, and as they should. He's a good player, but the Cubs are in a weird spot right now. Their payroll's in a weird situation. They're not sure if they're going to compete. He's got 2 years left on his deal. He's 30 years old. There could be some trade value there, but if the Cubs like him, and it seems like they do, that's probably someone who might not get actually traded unless there's a trade deadline situation where the Cubs are just out of it, or, maybe next winter with 1 year left and the Cubbies aren't in a good spot, you might see him traded. But it seemed like the Cubs GM did shut down the Seiya Suzuki trade over the last couple of days. Don't think that one's going to happen. And that leaves us in a what else do they do scenario. What do the Phillies do? I completely agree with all the frustrations on social media right now that this team just isn't quite getting enough done right now. But objectively, taking emotions out of it, what can they do? I would love Teoscar Hernandez. I think he fits the team great. But he not only doesn't want to leave LA, him and his camp are publicly telling everyone that he doesn't want to leave LA. They are willingly giving up leverage in that situation because he doesn't care. He just wants to stay there. So there's not much you can do there. Bregman doesn't make sense unless you can move Bohm. What else is out there? That's why you see them in all these trade reports. I don't believe for a second that Bohm wasn't being shopped. I don't believe for a second that the Phillies are done. I just think they're somewhat handcuffed in what they can do. What this team needs and what's out there just don't really line up. So they got to get creative. It's probably going to come in a trade. I think a trade gets done if Boston doesn't go over the line. I think we're sitting here looking at Garrett Crochet in a Phillies uniform if Boston isn't willing to put that package together. So I think the Phillies are going to be continuing to push and make noise. You never know who's going to come available later. You just never know. It's weird that Oakland's buying, signed Luis Severino. I love the idea of Brent Rooker because you only got to figure it out for a year and then you lock him in as your DH when Schwarber leaves. But they're buying. It's weird. I don't know. Maybe it's because they're about to go to Vegas. They want us to give some couple guys maybe for the new fans to be excited about. I don't know. But that one's probably out the door. Who can they get? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you're still here, if you're still listening at this point, let me know. What do they do? Who do you want? I'm all in on Seiya Suzuki. If they can get a Kyle Tucker trade done without Andrew Painter, that would be unbelievable. But the big thing with this team is going to be down the road. I know it seems like that window is shutting. There's just not a lot out there right now. I promise you wholeheartedly, if they don't get Kyle Tucker and he's a free agent next winter, they're going to be in that conversation. If they don't get Garrett Crochet and he's a free agent in 2 years, they're going to be in that conversation. Nonetheless, here nor there, I'm telling you, and I'm going to keep telling you all offseason, this Phillies team, odds actually just broke pretty early here before Christmas. Phillies are third to win the NL East, but at just plus 210. There are 3 teams in the NL East that are, this is going to be a dog race. This is going to be a 90-win baseball team. If they get the pieces right, maybe some other players improve, could win 95 again. You never know. This is a good roster. I know it ended ugly. And there's not a lot out there, and it's getting frustrating, and I'm frustrated too. I want this team to win in 25. There's enough pieces here, but I do believe in the long-term plan. I do believe that there's going to be an Andrew Painter era during the Bryce Harper contract. I do believe that they set everything up with the Schwarber contract and the Castellanos contract and the Realmuto contract to retool this thing before Bryce turns 37. There's going to be a phase 2 after 2025. It sucks that there's no perfect piece out there right now. I think if the Phillies were really in on a big starting pitcher or a first baseman, you would be seeing them spend money this winter. It just doesn't make sense. You're seeing them go after Garrett Crochet in a trade. He is a unique talent. You're not going to see the Phillies spend money on a starting pitcher this offseason. But if they can go get a diamond like Garrett Crochet, they will. If they were looking for a number 2 or a number 3 starter, or if they were looking for a first baseman, Christian Walker, Pete Alonso out there, they would be spending money. But they don't need those things. It's not the top of the priority list. So it just doesn't line up. But the window's not closing. They will be buyers again next winter. They will probably be buyers the winter after that when Castellanos falls off. And they're going to be in the trade mill all the way through 2025, no matter what's going on. So I'm excited. I'm excited about the Jordan Romano signing. I'm nervous about them Mets, as you should be too. I'm nervous about them Braves getting healthy. But I'm excited because I know it's going to be fun. Iron sharpens iron. Let's go, baby. Subscribe down below. Cherry Pinstripes Podcast. We'll be covering all the news here. The Romano signing happened 5 minutes after we hit stop record on the last podcast, by the way, or it would have been discussed in the last one. The stove is hot. We're getting signings before Christmas. We'll talk to you guys in the next one.